Hey, 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 you are now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast, sponsored in part by Noble L Works over on 1621 South Sinclair, where you can get discounts by just mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Drink discounts on us, baby. And also by 714 Tickets, 714 Tickets, 714 Tickets. The price you see is the price you get, and you also get 10% additionally off in the Apply Now code once you order your tickets just by mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show.
In the land of last shores, I play my part with the Halos in the infield. I'll make my mark. I'm the Lone Star Halo, shining bright tonight. In a sea of rangers, I'll stand and fight with the Halos in the outfield under stadium lights. From Texas to Anaheim, we'll soar to new heights. We'll soar to new heights.
And welcome everybody to the Lone Star Halo podcast. My name is Fernando. You know me as the Lone Star Halo. Joined here by Jason. And I'm going to let Jason introduce himself.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show tonight, Fernando. Appreciate it. Great opportunity tonight to talk some baseball, talk about your Halos. You can find me on Instagram at Bourbon and Baseball. Feel free to check out my live podcast on Wednesday evenings, talking bourbon and baseball. We have a fun show. We have former players on. We do some cool segments. Would love to see people join in and check out the show. But glad to be here tonight talking with you. And it's super exciting. The beginning of the season, games are just starting in Arizona and Florida, and everybody's feeling the excitement of the season, and everybody starts fresh.
Absolutely. Every team is still in that delusional stage where they think they can compete.
Yeah, till the end of April.
Exactly. And some teams till the end of spring training, and then they found out real quick it's not happening this year. So I don't know if you want to share exactly where you live. You told me off air. Do you want to share your journey into baseball and for Angels fans how it translates?
Yeah, I live in Southern California. I'm in Indio, not too far from Palm Springs. I'm in the Coachella Valley. Grew up going to Angels spring training games in Palm Springs at Old Angel Stadium. I used to take off from school and ride my bike over to Angel Stadium, and I used to I would hang out in the oleander bushes under the old scoreboard. And there was a hole in the fence. And so I would kind of hang out in there and be able to have an oleander field view of the stadium and the games. And there were times I would go with my dad and some friends, and we'd actually sit in the bleachers. Actually, the last time I remember going to an Angel spring training game was, I believe it was '84, my freshman year. And we got a group of tickets for our freshman baseball team, and we just bailed and went over to the stadium and watched an Angel game, one of the last years that they were there. And so throughout the years, I would take my bike, watch some games, and enjoy the spring. And my dad was a fantastic Angels fan, and forever optimistic in April. And then usually the end of August, he swore them off every year and said he'd never watch them again. But he was a diehard Angels fan as I was a kid growing up.
Was he around for the 2002 World Series?
No, he passed in 1990. He was as I said, the eternal optimist for the Halos, and I'll always remember the '79 playoffs against Baltimore, and Jim Anderson played shortstop for the Angels, and he made a devastating error that cost the Angels a lead, I believe, or one of the games against Baltimore. And I'll never forget my dad saying, who is Jim Anderson? I mean, I hear his echo today. And he was just saddened at that and after that 79 series. But I felt his heartbreak as a young kid.
Do you remember who his favorite Angel was?
Jim Fregosi.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
Jim Fregosi was his favorite Angel when the Angels first came to town. As we kind of grew, as I grew into being a baseball fan, and those mid 70s or late 70s, early 80s teams, he really did love Bobby Grich.
Great Angel. I mean, both Fregosi and Grich, great
Right?
Angels. All-time Angels, really.
Yeah, but Grich should have more consideration for the Hall, considering his career, his longevity, his WAR. But yeah, he was such an important catalyst in those AL West championship teams in the '80s. People forget about him.
This might be one of those questions that you probably can't fully answer because we'd be here literally all night. But you brought up Hall of Fame. You open up that can of worms. I want your opinion because there's so many different ones when it comes to the Hall of Fame. Is the Hall of Fame voting broken in its current form?
I would have to say it is, because a lot of times, and what from my experience and what I'm seeing from the outside looking in, is I still see that many people, I guess, judge the Hall of Fame consideration category, election, still based on most of those guys from the first class, right? On the Babe Ruths, on the DiMaggios, on the Bob Gibsons, on the
unfair levels.
yeah, Kremskis, and I think that there's that elevated expectation that many writers, voters still have. And interestingly enough, about a year ago, I was listening to a conversation with David Cohn, the former MLB pitcher, and he really kind of skewed my vision. And I think a lot of people should consider his perspective of your impact on the generation that you played with. And that really kind of solidified a lot of some of the arguments that we still have, i.e. Thurman Munson, Dale Murphy, and players of those caliber that are still waiting to get in. But overall, the way David Cohn, I guess, paraphrased it and made it really kind of simplified it, the impact that you have on the generation that you played in, again, comparatively to some of the guys that you stack up against. And so it really kind of changed my perspective and changed the idea that I think that we should have when it comes to Hall of Fame voting and consideration.
Okay. So judging by what you said, I think I know your answer to this question because you're talking about the various generations. Are guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens Hall of Famers in your book? Obviously, they're not getting in unless it's the veteran committee, but
no doubt. Those guys, say what you want about whatever their history, whatever their side history is, but gee, many Christmas. I've been blessed and lucky to see some generational players, man. And, besides Bo Jackson, Barry Bonds was the best player on the field anytime he stepped on it, period, his entire career.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Clemens was a dominating pitcher. He reclassified the number one starter position, and he kind of redefined the go-getter, the win at all costs, the not be afraid to pitch inside pitcher, and that's my plate, not your plate pitcher. And today I'll watch pitchers pitch, and if they can't pitch inside, they shouldn't pitch inside because they're we're getting too many players injured, good players injured by pitchers who shouldn't have no business pitching inside.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest issue is baseball tries so hard to protect this image that doesn't need protection. I mean, you don't need to put an asterisk around the steroid era. People know it exists, yet people still have a fondness for the era, right? I mean, people remember people certainly didn't have an issue tuning in every single day to see if Sammy Sosa would hit a home run or Mark McGuire. So why are we trying so hard to not get guys like that in the Hall of Fame or the home run king? We're not going to get him in the Hall of Fame because he might have taken steroids, he might not have. But Major League Baseball had no problem advertising, hey, Barry Bonds is coming to town, and cashing in when he was playing. So I've never understood this desire to, protect the game. I mean, it's the same thing with like the whole Pete Rose thing. And obviously at this point, there's no doubt, right? I mean, the guy literally served a life sentence. He's not ever going to get to see the day where he's in the Hall of Fame because he's no longer with us. But the guy definitely deserves to be in now. So what was Major League Baseball trying so hard to protect? It's just I could talk about that forever. It was a missed opportunity.
Major League Baseball did not want to give Pete Rose the platform where he could stand up and roast MLB on the dais at the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Ultimately, I think Petey will get in, but posthumously, because there's no way that baseball was going to allow him to stand up there and just rip them one. And then take a break and be sponsored by FanDuel, right?
Exactly. Isn't that so ironic?
Yeah, so may he rest. And as much of an a-hole as he probably was, and many people say, what he did on the field, it will never be duplicated. And I just think that ultimately he'll get in some sort of veterans committee vote.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not the hall of good guys you want, to model your kids after. Hey, you're not going to tell your kid, hey, Kurt Schilling, he's a nice guy. You should be like him. He's a dominant pitcher. He's one of the best pitchers of my lifetime. You might teach your kid to pitch like Kurt Schilling or Roger Clemens or hit like Barry Bonds, but those guys aren't necessarily known for being nice guys either. But once again, it's not the hall of feel-good stories. It's the hall of fame. These are the greatest players of the generation. And I mean, we're talking about one of the best pitchers ever, one of the best hitters ever. And Kurt Schilling is somewhere in the, one of the better pitchers of all time. But I mean, the guy didn't get in because he's an asshole. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just
that
I don't know.
that was probably in the top two reasons.
Exactly. So I mean, like I said, that's something I'm sure we can do a whole series about. But I just wanted to get your opinion on it, and thank you for sharing it. Now, absolutely. So you said you grew up in Indio, so you grew up going to some Angel spring training, a lot of games there. Well, when you were growing up, were you a particular fan of a team?
Growing up, I've watched the Dodgers and the Angels because they had the local TV station here. I always enjoyed the Saturday game of the week. But I've always been a Pinstripes fan. You think of baseball, you think of Babe Ruth, you think of Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built. And Dave Winfield was a Yankee growing up as well in my formative years as a baseball fan. Then Ricky Henderson came along. They had some down years for sure. But then the prodigy comes along with Derek Jeter. And so I've been a fan of the Yankees since I was a young kid. But as I have gotten more mature and wiser in my years, I am just such a fan of the game overall. I enjoy watching matchups and divisions and managers and underrated guys and overrated guys and you name it. The game, it's so poetic. It's so romantic. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty in baseball, at least in my opinion, is the fact that it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Now, anybody can watch baseball, but it takes a specific person to sit down and understand what's happening. And I always felt like baseball's trying too hard to appeal to just the casual man, and that's fine. The man or woman. I don't mean that gender specific. I just mean that in general. Um, but I mean, like, I think baseball is trying too hard to get the casual viewer to watch at home. Here's the thing: if you don't like baseball, you're really not going to sit down and watch baseball at home, right? It's not like turning on a football game. Somebody will turn on a football game in the background or whatever, or be like, "Hey, Sunday night football." But I don't know if the demographics is large when it's like, "Hey, Sunday night baseball," which what doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, right.
Um, yeah. Do you think that baseball is trying too hard to appeal to that casual audience member, or do you think that they've done a good job of trying to get that person?
It's interesting because take Shohei out of the equation, and we can argue the fact that, yeah, they're trying real hard to appeal to the casual fan. They're trying to, I guess, market the game like the NFL does through the City Connect jerseys and events such as that to get them to fans to buy a new jersey, buy a new uni, buy a new hat. They're trying to appeal to the fans through 4th of July, camo hats and things of that nature as well. And is it working? Yeah. But the casual fan, I got to tell you, when Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani were playing in Anaheim, the casual fan was making their way to Anaheim with their phone and with their platform and their posting of everything, because every time those dudes came up, every single phone in that stadium was up and on those guys. And so casual fans at that time, a couple of years ago when they were playing, they wanted to show up and see what could happen, what might happen, and that was the appeal that really MLB really capitalized on. And I think they're taking that to the next level because Shohei, think about it. Mike Trout was the guy everybody leveled up to just a few years ago. And now Bobby Witt Jr., you name the guys that are leveling up to it now. And so MLB's capitalizing on that big time.
Yeah. Now, we've done this show. This is going on our 4th year now, and I've said this many times. Nobody's laughed me out of the room yet, but maybe you'll be the first. So I'm only 30, so I've watched some baseball in my time, but
I remember 30.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I just turned 30 last month. So I've said, and I would consider myself a little bit of a baseball historian. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I've watched some of the older games. I like watching the classic game when those are playing, like on ESPN or whatever.
Right.
So, in my opinion, this is baseball's golden age. Now, it's not the romanticized, age of, when Babe Ruth was playing, the DiMaggios. But in terms of the overall talent we are seeing, I believe, in my opinion, this is truly baseball's golden age. We have never seen an amount of talent as we are currently seeing. In your opinion, be brutally honest, what do you think about that statement?
I think that's a fair enough statement, Fernando. I think that you're on the right track with that. I mean, look where we are today with teams, with players, with development. In the old days, when we had DiMaggio's or when we had those guys that, when they rode trains across the country, I mean, these guys that played, they worked other jobs. They smoked cigarettes and they went out and partied hard and they lived rough, and they didn't consider, taking care of themselves like today our players have personal chefs. They work out 12 months out of the year. There's so much more technology to improve this game. And so I absolutely think that the training, the conditioning, the defensive ability, the offensive production and spin rate and launch angle and all of these crazy things that we thought a few years ago, these analytical things, oh, where is all this coming from? It's driving the game today. And it's as a fan, I watched baseball in the 70s. I watched baseball in the 80s. I've watched, the entire Derek Jeter career, which is absolutely crazy to see a career like that from beginning to end. But, I watched some damn good World Series with some damn good players. But boy, oh boy, today it's so exciting to watch every day today these outstanding young players who could be 24 25. I mean, think about the Corey Seager and what he potentially could do this year coming back. People are forgetting about him. People are sleeping on him, and because he wasn't in the mix last year. But goodness gracious, I'm eager to see what he brings to the yard this year, because people are going to sleep on him, and he's just one of the great guys that we're seeing today. It's exciting to watch baseball today. Absolutely golden era.
Yeah, even when I think about like growing up, and I make it seem like that was so long ago. There was certainly some teams that just didn't have the caliber of talent that others did. But you have your contenders and you have your pretenders. But I feel like right now, where we currently are, the lines are a lot more blurred. Most times, the teams that aren't contending isn't because they don't have talent. It's simply because of things like injuries, where 20 years ago, there was definitely teams that didn't have very much talent. I mean, I grew up in San Diego. I watched some crappy Padres teams. I mean, crappy Padres teams. Where your best player, and this is going to be a name for you. The Padres' best player was Chase Headley forever.
Oh, man.
And Yankees fans are like, oh, never, don't mention that guy ever.
He's a burger, man. That guy, Chase Headley, was a burger.
But he was great in San Diego. You know what I mean? So it's funny. It's like if you mention Anthony Rendon, National fans are like, hey, that guy was great. And Angels fans are like, I swear, if you ever say that guy's name again, I will.
Jabroni. That guy is the biggest jabroni out there, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Clown. He is brought a dark cloud to his position, to his position also with baseball. And I think that guy is, I would hate to be a teammate of him, because it would be difficult for me to hold my tongue when he would be around, and and be cordial with him on a professional ball player level, because he's just not in that caliber of player, in my opinion. I mean, this guy just, you would think you could have surgery in the off season, jabroni. Not wait until, before a pitch is even thrown in the first week of spring training. He took the Angels season. Let's pretend it was like a Jenga pile. And he just like pulled one of those
right from the middle.
And it was just teeter-tottering right off the bat. And I think he's kind of like one of those old villains from an old, movie, and he's going, I did it again. And that's what really drives me up the wall the most with him. And like I said, it would be hard for me to hold my tongue if I was in the locker room or clubhouse or in the same room with him. Because he's just a bad vibe. He's bad for the team. He's bad for leadership, and I'm so surprised that they haven't DFA'd him already.
Yeah, it's now the thing that I hate is this narrative that like the Angels media puts out. Like, they'll ask Zach Neto or like Logan O'Hoppe, hey, what's your opinion on Anthony Rendon? And they always are like, oh, he's really funny. You know what I mean? It's always something like that. It's a very PR answer. And then the radio people are like, wow, I mean, hey, look, see, the players love being around him. He's a great mentor. But it's also like, what are you going to say? You know what I mean? You have to maintain a level of professionalism. I mean, there has to be some resentment. I mean, think about it like this. A lot of these guys in the Angels organization right now at the major league level, aside from obviously Trout, Rendon, and now a couple of the guys they brought in, these guys are making league minimum, a lot of these guys, right? They're new to the league. They're still on those rookie deals. They haven't hit arbitration yet. So there has to be a level of resentment, right? I mean, here
Absolutely.
you are busting your ass, like you said, working out 12 months out of the year. All you want is a double from in and out or whatever. And you maybe get 1 or 2 a year because you're trying to stay in pristine shape. And then you got this, let's call it what it is, asshole, who's making $38 million, one of the highest paid players in Major League Baseball history. And like you said, he just strolls up to spring training. Hey guys, I need hip surgery. You what?
Right? That is unnerving, man, because like you have to put your hand on your head and just shake your head with this guy time after time after time, and no remorse, no like, oh, I know it's not cool for the team, and it explains a lot about the Moncada signing, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 days before that news came out that they signed him.
And so, they saw the writing on the wall, I think, but it puts them in a bad position. The Halos are struggling to get past 63 wins. Let's be honest. And with Rendon in the lineup and healthy, with Trout in the lineup and healthy, and Soler being in the lineup and dropping bombs, they could win 10, 12 more games in the schedule this year. I would go take that over. But Rendon throws that wrench into making everything topsy-turvy and unknown. And that's kind of like an albatross around their neck for the whole season already, because he just kind of dropped that bombshell on them like, yeah, here we are. And I'm already hurt. And screw you guys. I'm going to be gone a long time. So, I just really, he's the King Jabroni right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Artie Moreno, like you said, you got to give him the good old DFA letters. I mean, I understand at this point, you have to wait for him to come back before you let him go at this point. I think that's one thing I don't know, but you can't DFA someone when they're on the IL.
Yeah.
So you got to wait. I mean, at this point, he's out indefinitely for the season, I'm guessing. I mean, when Artie Moreno talked to the media, it seemed like he wasn't playing this year. So with that being said, you're going to have to wait till the offseason. But at this point, it's got to be better to just eat the $38 million a year for the next 2 years. And just, I mean, at this point, put you in there, Jason. I mean, at least you're going to go out there wanting to play.
I could go out there and give it my all, man. That's for sure. And the sad thing is, he would have paid to play when he first came into the league. He would have taken a cheeseburger value meal at Mickey D's to be able to play. He would have played for any amount of money, and now he's just kind of pissing in the wind and laughing at Major League Baseball.
Yeah, so Todd has been on record saying that he believes when the next collective bargaining agreement is up, the two LA teams are kind of going to control the narrative here, in the sense of you have the Angels who, they kind of have to figure out, hey, what are we going to do next time, right? I mean, this guy's played 30% of the games possible.
Right.
It wasn't like he was here for 1 year. If someone's there for a year or two and they only played 30 games, all right, bad luck. I mean, that happens.
Right.
But when you sign someone to a 7-year deal And in those 7 years, he plays, what is it, like 250 games?
Yeah, I think
It's, it can't be much more than 300. So with that being said, I mean, you got teams like the Angels. They're not the only ones who dealt with this, right? There's a lot of teams that have owed money to guys that didn't produce. I mean, look at the Orioles with Chris Davis. They have a deferred contract now. So there's a lot of teams who you have to imagine at some point are going to say, man, this isn't fair to us. Yeah, we signed these guaranteed contracts. That's how this game works. But what about us? And at some point, Major League Baseball does kind of have to take the owners seriously. It's like, yeah, these guys have money. Nobody's, crying because they're poor. We don't feel bad for billionaires. But at the end of the day, that also stops them from spending more money, which is making us fans irritated because, hey, why can't we go out there and sign Max Fried? He wanted the Yankees. And it's because, hey, well, we're paying Rendon to do nothing. So at some point, you would think these owners have to say something. But then you got the Players Association, which is, of course, never going to agree to a salary cap.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody thinks that's going to happen. I could maybe see the Players Association going for like a salary floor because that benefits everybody. You know what I mean? These teams have to spend more money now. So I think that will happen in probably the next CBA. But then you have the other team, the Dodgers, who, found a very clever loophole with the deferrals. You almost hate it because it's such a good idea. It's like, how come nobody else is doing that?
Thank you, Bobby Bonilla.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We could all blame Bobby Bonilla Day every July 1st.
July 1st.
So I want to. So have you ever played or seen the videos where somebody gives you something and you have to blindly rank them between 5 and 1? You seen those?
Right.
Okay. So since you said that you grew up a Yankee fan, I want to give you these Yankee Dash baseball grades, and I want you to blindly rank them between 1 to 5. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Let's start off with Ricky Henderson.
I could go 3.
Okay, you're gonna go 3. All right. Jorge Posada.
5.
Okay. Alex Rodriguez.
Oh, wow. 2.
Okay. All right. Aaron Judge.
I guess I could put him in the 4 spot because there's still not a lot. There's still a lot to be shown with him. Now we're gonna go. Now the only one we have is the 1. Who are we throwing out there?
Derek Jeter. So
yeah.
So, all right. Are you comfortable with that list? So you have Jeter, A-Rod, Henderson, Judge, and Posada.
I think so, yeah. I'm pretty good solid with that. A-Rod was 2, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm solid with that.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good rankings list. I was trying to keep track of that as we went. Okay, so baseball this season. What are you most excited for? I mean, you said that you're a fan of just turning on a game. Do you typically look for certain matchups when you're looking, to just watch games casually? Or are you looking for a certain player? What's your vibe typically?
Well, I always first and foremost check what time the Yankee game is on. And we'll always watch the Yanks. And I love listening to the Michael King and from Yes Network and everybody on there. They're fantastic. But I like to watch. My son is a Guardians fan. I like to watch Stephen Vogt. I like to see how he manages.
I loved him as a player.
He's the guy who's fantastic. I like to watch the A's. I loved watching the A's games last year, man. The love affair that the city had with the team and the generational fans that are there. There's a guy that is on my page and a friend of my page that has had season tickets to the A's and the Giants for like 35, 40 years. And the stories that these guys have told are fantastic. So I like to watch, I guess, more the matchups, more than anything else, and if it gets boring, I'll just flip the channel or I'll go back to it. But it really is nice once in a while to get caught by surprise and have a one-hit shutout, and go, wow, I didn't expect this. And from somebody that I never even expected. So those are always the icing on the cakes as well.
Yeah, people are always surprised because I had Angels season tickets for years when I was still living in Southern California before I moved out here to Texas, and I would go to games with like a friend or like a girl or something, and the Angels would be kicking a team's ass, and they'd be like, "Well, it doesn't look like you're having fun." I never liked blowouts. I'd always tell them like, I don't like blowouts. Even if the Angels are winning 12-0, 12-2. I don't want to watch that. I want to watch that 1-0 shutout where the other team keeps getting a man on second and third, and the pitcher keeps, playing it close, playing it dangerous, but keeps getting that big ground out or strikeout. That's exciting.
Right.
I've been at games in person where it's basically a home run derby, and it's just, this isn't fun. This isn't baseball. I want the shutouts.
Yeah.
I must have gone. I've been to. I can't even pretend to know how many baseball games I've been to. I've never seen a cycle in person, and I've never seen a perfect game or a no-hitter. I've been at games where somebody had a no-hitter against the Angels, like in the 8th inning, and I was cheering for the no-hitter because that's baseball history.
Yeah, you don't get to do that very often, man.
Exactly.
That's something that you can, a feather in your cap, man. Something to add to the resume.
Have you gone to see any of those in person?
I want to say I went to Edwin Jackson's no-hitter at Dodger Stadium. Kind of vaguely think that I know he was pitching that day. It might have been that day that he threw the no-no, but he walked 17 guys and it was like a 4-hour game. So I can't, but the best game that I ever went to as a kid was I saw Nolan Ryan go heads up against Fernando at Chavez Ravine, and Fernando beat him. And I'll always remember that game. But I've never had an opportunity to go to a no-no or anything like that. As a coach, I did have a player turn an unassisted triple play once.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That was cool.
Yeah, I think I've been to a game once where I saw a triple play. Yeah, so I have gone to see that, but yeah, I mean that's what makes this stuff so rare. It doesn't happen every day. So like I said, I'm a baseball fan, so that's what I want to see. Like if I have the opportunity to see history, even if it's against my team, you gotta cheer for the history because you and everyone else in the stadium are the only people that could say, "Hey, I watched Edwin Jackson get a no-hitter."
Right.
So,
I was at Yankee Stadium 69 years to the day of the luckiest man speech. So I guess that's something I could say I was at.
yeah, there you go. All right, so 2 last quick questions I got for you if you still have a little bit of time. Okay, so how do you know how many MLB stadiums you've been to total?
I used to know off the top of my head, but we can say Petco, Anaheim, Dodger Stadium, Oakland, San Francisco, Citi Field, Yankee Stadium.
Both of them, or just the?
And I was outside of Coors Field, and then I went to the Coors Brewery instead. So 7.5.
Fair enough. Well, was it the old Yankee Stadium or the new one?
Both, the old Yankee Stadium and the new Yankee Stadium.
Okay, I didn't get to ever go to the old one, but I've been to the new one. Yeah, I also did pest control in New York. I used to go out there once a month for 3 years. So I finally went when I was out there.
Job security, that's for sure, in New York.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I've gotten to go to a lot of cool ballparks. I've gone to 19, and most of those were because of work. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. Ultimately, I'd like to go to see them all. Unfortunately, I'm dealing with some health issues right now that is keeping me from being able to travel and get remote. But I'll make it and I'll get there. 19, that tip of the cap to you for that, Fernando. That's fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, yeah, and once you do them all, I expect an unbiased review. Now,
Absolutely.
out of the ones you've gotten to go to, which one was your favorite, and is there any particular reason why?
Um, to be perfectly honest, old Yankee Stadium was really, really fantastic. It was the last season there, and we got to sit out in the left field bleachers, and there was such a great community out there with the fans. That was an experience that I'll never forget. And it was a game against the Red Sox, as a matter of fact, and it was you could feel the spirit of the past there because of the Joe D history, but you could also feel the excitement of the future and Derek Jeter and what he brought to the stadium as well. And so it had both the old vintage and nostalgia feel and the new kind of excitement of the new generation of Yankee teams while we were there. And I really got that vibe, and I still feel it today.
Yeah, it's a real shame I never got an opportunity to go to the old Yankee Stadium because I heard the old one was better for obvious reasons, right? You know, you had the history ingrained in the walls of that place. You know,
Right.
and that's the thing with baseball, right? You know, it's great to walk into a building and just think about everything that's happened. You
Right.
know, I mean, growing up in San Diego, yeah, I went to Petco Park. Obviously, I went to the Murph also, but I went to Petco Park, and it was a nice ballpark. But for the longest time, that's all it was.
Right.
You know, a nice ballpark. There was no history there. You know, if the walls could talk, they wouldn't say anything. You know, but then you go to these cathedrals of baseball. You know, Dodger Stadium, Fenway Park, the old Yankee Stadium, Wrigley. I've been to Wrigley. It's one of my favorite ballparks. It's one of my top three favorite ballparks. And it's once again, you know, you walk in, yeah, I mean, Wrigley Field, you're going to get the troughs in the bathroom. You know, you're urinating next to the person next to you.
Right.
You know, but that's kind of the beauty in it. Plus, Wrigley Field's also cool because they also have urinals if you don't want to go to the trough. So that's kind of cool. It's the best of both worlds. But
Right.
you know, when you walk in, you can feel the history of those places. So I can
Right.
only imagine what old Yankee Stadium's like to think of the greats that walked through there. And obviously, the new one is a replication, but you can't replicate Babe Ruth and Joe DiMaggio walking through those doors. You know what I mean? You just
Right.
can't do that. But I also understood why they had to, you know, to redo it. I get it.
It was old. I mean, look at the skeleton on the inside. It needed it. There were so many things that were, you know, out of date that needed changing. Although it was a wonderful and beautiful facility, it was in ill repair. Yeah,
Have you watched the YouTube documentary about them rebuilding Wrigley Field?
I have not.
Okay, well, if you're interested and you ever get an hour, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's it's a really cool documentary. So they bring the family of like the new ownership group, and they talk about how they rebuild Wrigley in a 4-year period, essentially from the ground up. Literally, like the foundation had to get rebuilt while the stadium was on top of it, and it talks about everything else in between. So it's really interesting because I went to Wrigley Field for the first time in 2001, and I believe as of like 2019 it's or 2021. Sorry, I said 2001 accidentally. And as of 2019, it's basically a brand new stadium because of how they've rebuilt it.
I'd love to. Please share that. I'd love to take a look at that. Send me that
Okay.
link. I'll definitely look it up.
Yeah, anybody who's a true baseball fan, they definitely got to check out that documentary.
Cool.
Okay, and the last thing I got. So the caveat here, you need to have watched them from the beginning to the very end. I think your answer is going to be Derek Jeter. So if it is, pick somebody else.
Okay.
Um, in your opinion, the best player you've seen in your lifetime from their first to last game?
Um, I could say, Derek Jeter and watching him as a prodigy, but
And I felt that would have been your answer. That's why I was like, hey, you
but
already said that.
but
So
but I could also say Barry Bonds. Um, I was lucky enough to watch him play in college at Arizona State. He dominated. When he came up as a professional with the Pirates, he dominated. And as I said earlier, every time I watched him play, even when I didn't watch him play, anytime he suited up and he played on the field, he was the best player on the field any game he ever played. Period.
yeah, absolutely. And that was one guy. I mean, he played on some very bad Giants teams
Yes,
when he first went over there, and he was always talked about. Whenever you turned on ESPN, because of course that was a big thing back then, right? You turned on ESPN because there was no MLB Network, there was no YouTube, so you had to go on there and wait to see if the Yankees lost or won. Through the little ticker on the bottom. And they always talk about Barry Bonds. He was always that guy. He was the face of baseball for sure during
yes,
that era.
yes.
Now, my answer is Albert Pujols. I think Albert Pujols is the best player I've gotten to see from beginning to end. I know there's going to be a lot of Angels fans who, cringe at that answer because we didn't get his best years. But, I mean, if you look at his numbers, his career numbers, I mean, 3,184 hits, I believe it is, just over 700 home runs, Gold Gloves, All-Star games, MVPs, World Series rings with the Cardinals. I mean, from beginning to end, and there was even a stretch of time where he was a fast runner, but
Yeah, he
not
ran
in
on
Anaheim.
the fronts of his toes. Yeah, and arguably, Albert is a fantastic choice and a very well deserved choice, without a doubt. Yeah, and there arguably there could be 10 different guys, Ken Griffey Jr.,
Absolutely.
Kirby Puckett or whoever, but yeah, the two, yeah, that's a solid choice there with number 5, Albert Pujols.
Yeah, when I think about growing up, being in elementary school, I remember my dad being like, "Hey, the Cardinals are coming into town. Let's go watch Albert Pujols." And we would go, and man, he would just dominate the Padres. Didn't matter who was up there. Padres never had any good hitters when I was growing up, but they always had good pitching.
Man, they had Chase Headley, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Woo!
Will Venable, Chase Headley, Scott Harrison, all those guys.
Kyle Blank.
Yeah, Kyle Blanks. I remember Kyle Blanks.
Remember that guy? Burger.
Yeah, but the Padres always had pretty good pitching when I was growing up. Woody Williams, Jake Peavy, David Wells. So they certainly always had decent pitching, and
Right.
Pujols didn't care. He would just always dismantle those guys.
It doesn't matter who was on the mound.
Exactly. All right. So, Jason, thank you for joining us. For anybody who is interested, where can they find you and your show?
You can check out my page on Instagram at Bourbon and Baseball. Take a look at our live Wednesday podcast, Bourbon and Baseball podcast, IG Live. We'd love to have you guys come and take a look, participate in the comments, and just have some fun with us.
Well, there you go. You know where to find him. And we'll make sure to link it down below as well. So just to make it a little easier. On behalf of all of us here at Halos and Infield, thank you guys so much for tuning in for this episode. It was great to have Jason on, and hopefully we can have him on again in the future.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me tonight, Fernando. It was a blast.
No problem at all. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.